What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another great, amazing episode for the Smart Agency Masterclass and podcast, where we talk to digital agency owners about how they scaled and eventually sold their business. And today's guest is going to talk about how they built their agency over the past decade, how they sold it, and what life is like with working with the agency that acquired them, which was actually Republic's. So let's go ahead and get into the episode. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
Sure. So, I'm Aaron Levenstadt, CEO of Pedestal Search. And Pedestal Search is an agency that is squarely focused on helping businesses drive more productive traffic from search engines to their websites or stores, etc.
Awesome.
That's all
And,
that we do.
and how did you get started in this crazy agency life?
So how I got started goes back to my work experience prior to starting the agency. So I was working at Google and spent time on both the organic and the paid search products and the analytics product at Google. And then after working there for a few years, I had, some friends and family kind of introduced me to other businesses that were looking for help with their search setup and doing things in their businesses on search. And I was, happy to help out. And then at some point, one of the businesses was like, hey, we could really use some ongoing support here. What would you think about us paying you? And then the amount of money that they were suggesting to 25-year-old Aaron was like, oh my, that's more than I
What
thought
was
I'd
that
ever do.
amount? I always like to know.
Yeah, I think they were basically offering to help them with like their paid and organic. It was like $6,000 or $7,000 a month. And
That's
25-year-old
awesome. That's a
Aaron.
lot of Natural Light and Milwaukee's best beer.
Exactly right. Yeah, it helped with the rent and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, exactly right. So that's sort of how it was born through that, and then I ended up going for a laser eye surgery procedure a couple years later. So 2008, 2009 was like the worst time to start a business, like a very poorly timed decision on my part, financial crisis, etc. And then ended up going to a laser eye surgery procedure and got to know the owners of this clinic very well. And they were basically like, listen, after your eyes healed, can you take off the glasses? Can you take a look at our ads account and our SEO? And I did that with them. And then that became sort of another, or our first client as the, the business as it is today. So it was some happenstance and then some laser eye surgery that kind of kicked it all off.
I was wondering where you were going. I was like, then I got my LASIK surgery. I lost my sight. I didn't know where you were going with that. What did you charge? What did you charge the laser company?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's so long ago now. I want to say it's probably around the same, probably
Same.
around that sort of
Man,
that
you were
spot.
rolling in the money at 25.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
got lucky with a couple there. Yeah.
What so that's kind of your origin story of how you kind of started your agency. How long did it take you guys to get over the million mark?
To get over the million mark, I would say it took, I would probably say 6 to 7 years.
Okay. And why is that? Like what if you were looking back, what would you change in order to speed that up?
Yeah. So I think we grew slowly, partially on purpose, because didn't want to grow too quickly to the point where we weren't able to adequately and properly support our clients. I mean, that was never something that I wanted to do. Um, but I also think we learned some really key lessons along the way. One is around what we do and how to explain what we do. So this is something I got better at, and that as the agency evolved, we got better at explaining. We help your business get more discovered on search. We don't shoot TikTok videos. We don't make pizza. Those are not things that we do, right? And I don't have a problem with either of those things. It's just not us. So I think niching in this respect, this is from a service offering perspective, this is all that we do, and getting that into the mind of clients when we were able to do that, which took some time just to really kind of nail that flow and have the process to support it. That really helped kind of take our growth to the next level.
And then what about how long did it take you to start raising your fees?
Yeah, I think also probably as we started to experiencing that growth and had a lot more demand coming in, and because purposely we weren't growing as quickly to meet the demand, that gave us the ability to start raising fees because people were resonating with this message. We got better about identifying our ideal client and how that client resonated with this message. And because there were more of them than we could service, the supply and demand, we were able to raise our fees there. Um, so that's probably the best way I can think to answer that one.
What were some of the first when you started getting momentum? So think back, you crest over the million mark. What was kind of the next goal? And then like what what were you kind of doing on like the team structure? Like I presume if right at the million mark you were probably doing a lot of sales yourself, probably managing a lot of accounts. Like what was that transition and how did you do it?
Yeah, so I think at that point we started to get more serious around a blueprint for like what the organization should look like, right? So, I was doing X, Y, and Z, and I had my hand in ABC, and I had to get to the point where I was doing more call it like CEO level stuff and not day to day account strategy and other stuff. So that was we basically developed like an organizational chart where we looked at ratios of account strategists to how many clients each strategist could handle comfortably, and then started building that out, and then had added an execution or like a delivery layer to the organizational chart, and then we started filling those roles. And as we filled those roles, it gave me time to concentrate on more strategic, like directional level thinking for the organization.
People are going to be saying, screaming at me right now. What are the ratios? What were the ratios that worked for you?
Yeah, we were always pretty. There's a variance. I mean, it's going to vary depending on client size, of course, but I would say like probably like 4 to 8 or 9 per strategist
Hmm.
in that ballpark.
Yep. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that as well. But that's a common question I get asked. Like, how many like how many can these account strategists handle? And I always kind of start off, well, it depends on how big the account is. Like, if it's a Goliath, one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Exactly right.
have you always wanted to sell your agency? Was that the goal when you started? Or when did it start creeping in?
So yeah, it was absolutely not the goal when I started. I kind of thought that I was going to be working in the agency till kind of like the final day. Like I had no
The
intention. I
final
know never really
countdown. Yeah.
final countdown exactly. So I never really seriously considered thinking about selling. Um, but then over time, started having conversations with different mentors and different people that were close to me. Um, and I think they had started thinking about like, hey, like, have you considered this? Have you considered how you might want to leave your legacy, like how, like, what do you want to do with the business now that at this point we're like 20, 25 people? I mean, are you going to try to get this to 50 to 100? Are you going to try to do something different? And then as I started having those conversations around those different paths, that's when the idea and the sort of the concept of selling became more um, apparent.
And as kind of your advisors were talking about this and saying, hey, you might want to, like, here's your options, were companies coming to you for the possibility of, like, because I hear, in our mastermind, it seems like there's a lot of people are like, hey, I want to buy your agency. And a lot of them are kind of, they're not legit. Did you have a lot of those coming to you?
Yeah, so I would be getting emails, maybe not daily, but they were coming in regularly, and this especially like during COVID, where you know interest rates were so low and money was so loose in the economy, and we're still kind of there. But there were so many emails flying, like, "Hey, have you considered doing this? Are you interested? We're looking to buy a business." Or, so yeah, absolutely, there were a lot of inquiries, and most of the time it was just, "Hey, like, not interested, kick rocks." Not really what we're, but then you know, but yes, is the answer to the questions. There were a bunch of inquiries.
For the people listening, because they're especially at the level you guys were, what were some of the things that were red flags to eliminate those people that were not serious, just to save your time? Because time's the most valuable asset we all have. What were some of the red flags or indicators that were like, yeah, we'll pass on this one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think what I would try to do is understand as early as possible in a conversation, even if it's just like, somebody look reasonable enough to the point where I might jump on a 15-minute touch point. I try to understand why. Like, why are they interested in actually doing this as the buyer? Like, why would the buyer be interested in this? And if they can't articulate that to the point where you understand it, I'd say that's a big red flag, because I think you're kind of hitting on this, Jason, is like so many buyers are just not legitimate for so many reasons, or will do different things in the process. And if they aren't anchored to a why, then that to me was a red flag, because if you're going to go down this path, it's you want to be clear as to why they're doing it.
Yeah, and you got to understand where they're going as well. Like, do you want to be on the boat from New York to London? If you don't want to go to London, well, get off. There's so many people that just thought, like you were saying, low interest rates, let's grow quicker, but then they haven't had a fully thought out plan laid out to be, how can you guys be successful? How can they be successful? What's the cultural fit there? I mean, there's so many different factors in there. What led you to taking the call with Thomas, and then what led you also to saying yes to selling to Republics?
Yeah. So I got introduced to Thomas, and I think throughout the course of those conversations, I think Thomas from Republics has, I mean, a couple of things. One is a very clear, very strong vision. To your point, Jason, my why and your point about getting on that boat. Um, so that's got to be clear, and Thomas is very clear in that, and has been very clear about that from the very beginning. That's one. Two is Thomas, I think, carries himself, and the way as I've gotten to know him better, he has this, confident humility about him that is just he's he does what he says he's going to do. And throughout the entire process, as we had these conversations, he was very, very good about this. If he says he's going to do something, it gets done. And as you're going through this kind of process, which is, big undertaking, can be emotional at times. It's working with somebody like that, and basically, see as I'm discussing this with him, and as I'm seeing him, he delivers and everything he says he's going to do, and the vision, the boat from New York to London. It's I think I kind of got to the point where I was like, hey, like, I could really see myself working with Thomas, and I could really see the benefits of joining Republics as a great thing for our clients and for our team. And I think that was, a big part of what helped push the deal to the finish line.
How many times did you cry? How many
A
times did you get
bundle.
emotional? Like, well, I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not kidding. Well, I'm not, like, I don't think you cried, but how many times was it an emotional decision where you kind of teeter totted back and forth? Because at the end of the day, you built this thing over a decade, and it's really emotional to sell it because you're kind of worried what's the next step. What were some of those things that went through your head?
Yeah, I think you know you may have been joking, but I was talking to my wife, and we just had a baby, and as I've especially, it's a family decision, right? So I discussed this with my wife, and there were points where I was teary eyed throughout the process, and I really did not know whether or not I wanted to go through with it because I started this business, and I've told you a little bit about the beginning, first clients, but I was, it was like between my computer and a Starbucks and an Italian restaurant that I'm pretty sure is like mafia controlled, where I was like in the back, like talking to clients, and they're like, "What do you want to order?" And I'm like,
Tell us more
I just
about
ordered a
that.
cappuccino in the morning." Well, yeah, there's a story there. But from those very early beginnings, where to what we've grown into, and this, it's I think common phrase is like it's your baby, like you've grown this thing, it's really a part of my identity, and it's absolutely.
We might have lost Aaron. Oh, Aaron, did I lose you? All right, sorry about that, Smart Agency Masterclass listeners. We had a little technical difficulty, but we're back now. Um, Aaron, tell us a little bit about what was your decision to, because a lot of people, when they sell their agency, they have a vision of just sitting on the beach doing nothing. Why did you stay on with the agency? Why did you stay on with Republics?
Yeah, so first of all, personally, I'm like, I'm good on the beach for like 48 hours, but then
Me
after
too.
that, I'm not good on. So that's one. I knew that I wanted to be continuing on and continuing to work towards our North Star, our raison d'etre as pedestal division of Republics, and also what Republics is doing. And I think the ability to collaborate with the leaders and the founders that are at Republics, the other agencies that are working within the network, um, has really helped drive even more value for our clients and has provided opportunities for our team to learn and grow. So it's really been a first class experience.
Good. What if you could go back to when you had your LASIK surgery and you were, charging your clients and really kind of getting going in the agency? What's one thing that you would do over again?
I think getting clearer earlier on who our ideal client should be and just honing in on that and then driving towards acquiring those clients as customers and just saying no to like everything else. um that I think is something that you know in a do-over, I would do over it. And I think there's like some like famous Warren Buffett quote that's like, write down your like top 20 things that you want to accomplish this year, and then like cross out the bottom 15, right? Because like those are the five things that you should focus in on. And that's I think that kind of that would be the do-over.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, this has all been amazing, Aaron. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
You asked a lot of really great questions. I think maybe also one of the things that one question would have been just in terms of when we brought on an ops manager. And I think that's something else that I probably would have done earlier, in a do-over scenario where it's a commitment to hire that individual, but having somebody who's responsible and tasked with just running the operation and running the day to day is so helpful. So I think that would be another.
At what point would you bring them on? Like at how many employees or what revenue or how many years in?
Yeah, such a good question. I think I probably if I'm gonna like put my finger to the wind on this without having like done the model, maybe like at 10 people, you probably need to start having people like oversee those other people, right? And that becomes maybe that's even a little high. But at some point, when you have like when you have that many people, and it's an operation that's running every day, um, having somebody who's tasked with making sure it runs smoothly and in an organized fashion, and that people HR stuff get handled, that is it's super helpful to the agency and to the growth.
The operations people are so key because most us owners, we're all visionaries. We're forced to do particular tasks or management, but we're not particularly the best at it. And these people can come in, and I look at those are the how people. We're the who. We should be like, who needs to do this? And then they're like, well, how do I actually need it done? And when you can actually do that, that means you have the right systems in place where you have the opportunity to sell one day. Because if the owner is doing everything, that valuation and the possibility of them having the opportunity to sell is just going down very rapidly. But when you get an operations person, it just, man, it makes everything so much better. And you get the freedom back, right? Like you get to take vacations.
You get the freedom back. It's super helpful for all the reasons you mentioned. And then one thing that I'll share personally, Jason, I think you also hit on this, was sort of that like you have a visionary and then an integrator, whatever we call these titles. But I'm the visionary, right? So that's me, and I'm not an integrator. And I'll have these ideas, and I'll come to the table, I'll come to our meetings, and be like, hey, like I have these like 7 or 8 ideas, and then our ops person is like my check, who's like, hey, Aaron, like slow down, right? Like you got to slow down. Like these are all 7 great ideas, but we got to like figure out how to implement and operationalize and execute on them. And it's absolutely right. That's absolutely correct. But without having that brake check on the gas, it's a really important thing to have.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, what's the agency website people go and check out the agency that you sold?
Yeah, we're pedestalsearch.com. Pedestal like the stand, and then search.com.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I'm thrilled you're part of Republics, and can't wait to see what you guys are able to produce. And if all of you enjoyed this episode, make sure you guys subscribe, tell another agency owner. You'll help them out, you'll help us out. And if you guys want to be around amazing agency owners where we can see the things that you might not be able to see, have a lot of fun, grow and scale faster so you can get to where you guys want to go, make sure you all go to digitalagencyelite.com and apply. And until next time, have a swank day.